Welcome. Today we're going to take a look at plot in memoirs. Our learning goals include to look at what are the narrative elements in memoirs, to look at what is plot, and to understand how plot works in memoirs. So the narrative elements that you could expect to find in memoirs are the same that you would expect to find in any other fictional story. You'll see plot, characters, setting, and themes. With plot, you're going to find the actions and the events of the story. That's going to include the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the conclusion. With characters, these are the players in the story. Typically, those are going to be people, animals, or sometimes objects that take on personality and drive the story forward. With setting, you'll find the time and place of the story, which may include the geographical location, year, date, and season. And then with theme, you may find a wide variety of different kinds of themes that are included in an individual story. Memoirs would be included. These are the message from the writer to the reader, the moral of the story, the underlying big picture that's being communicated to the reader. Now, when we're looking at plot in memoirs, we're actually going to find the very same kinds of plot structures that we would find in any other kind of fictional story. There will be an exposition of some kind, which would introduce the narrative elements, such as the characters and the conflict. The conflict is the story's problem that typically comes into play in the exposition piece so that we know what the problem is, what's going on, what's happening. Then we'll have the rising action in our plot, which will be the intensity of conflict becoming more and more complex. At some point in the story, typically fairly late on, we'll find the climax, which is the solution to the conflict, and then following that will be the falling action and the resolution, which is the lowering or dropping of intensity and the story's conclusion. Now, this is the same kind of plot structure and same kind of plot model that you would see in a fictional story. You're going to see those same kinds of things in memoirs too. So how would you locate and dissect the plot when you're looking at a memoir? You want to look and find what is the story's problem. Once you can locate that, you can start to break down what the rest of the plot is. Identifying the protagonist and antagonist can show you where that conflict comes into play and how that friction is created, giving the story intensity. Look for the rising action in particular. The rising action is typically the largest piece of the plot in a story, and that's included in memoirs as well. Here's one way that you might find a plot mapped out, where you have the exposition at the beginning, moving into the conflict at some point there within the exposition. You have rising action. Rising action actually is going to be typically the largest part of your story. Climax is typically fairly short, falling action is fairly short, and conclusion is very short. So this is going to be very similar to what you've seen in short stories and what you've seen in novels. You'll see that same kind of structure, that same kind of setup in a memoir. At this point, what you should know and be able to do is to know the similarities between memoirs and novels, particularly with their plots, understand how to break apart the narrative elements in memoirs, and to be able to locate and dissect the plot in a memoir. It's going to be the same way that you would do it with a novel. I hope this information is helpful to your reading. Good luck to you.